Welcome to GRE Snacks, snackable episodes about the GRE, GMAT, and graduate school admissions. I'm Tyler, founder of Achievable, and we have an affordable GRE course that includes everything you need to ace your GRE. A full textbook, videos on key topics, tons of GRE questions backed by our memory-enhancing algorithm, a built-in study planner and essay grader, and full-length practice exam. You can try it out for free at achievable.me, and if you like it, use the code podcast to get 10% off at checkout. Now, let's get started. Today we have Linda Abraham, and Linda, I'd love if you could introduce yourself and share a little bit about your company.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you very much for having me on. I am the co-founder of Accepted, the co-founder of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. I've been an admissions consultant for the last 30 years, and Accepted has helped applicants gain acceptance to top MBA programs, including Harvard Business School, Stanford, MIT, Columbia, Penn, Chicago, Kellogg, you name it, INSEAD, London Business School, really all of them.
Yeah, fantastic. And you guys have a resource that you're sharing with our audience today. Is that correct?
Right. And I think it's going to relate very well to our topic for today. A lot of people wonder if they're competitive at their target schools. And we have a little quiz, kind of a fun little quiz that you can take. It's free, and it's at accept.com/MBA quiz. You'll get an assessment of your chances at your target programs, as well as tips on how to improve those chances once you do take the quiz. So again, check it out, accept.com/MBA quiz.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much. And as you hinted at, today's topic is about MBA programs, right? And specifically, how to choose which MBA programs to apply to. And when you think about this, this is even before, you're getting admitted and you're picking which one is best fit for you and all this stuff. It's just the very beginning, right? Like, what do you even want to apply to in the first place? So when you have this conversation with your clients, kind of how do you start?
I like to suggest that my clients think, first of all, about their post-MBA goals. The MBA, and most master's degrees, I might add, are means to an end. They are not an end in themselves. And I think that's something, now, in order to be a means to an end, you have to know what that end is. You don't have to know the address you want to sit in after your MBA program, but you do need to have direction. You need to know what function you want to perform and the industry in which you want to perform it. Ideally, that you want those two elements. Sometimes geography will play a role. You might know that you want to be on Wall Street, or you might know that you want to be in the city in London, or you might be from Hong Kong or who knows where, and know that you want to go back to your home country, even if you're pursuing an MBA somewhere else. So all those, again, geography sometimes is important, sometimes isn't, but function and industry is usually critical, and many business schools will ask you that too. So once you have this goal, that's kind of what you want to get out of the program, and we can dive into how that's going to direct you in a minute. The other element is obviously what you bring to the program. Those are your qualifications, and we can go into what those qualifications are. They aren't just the test score and the GPA. There's more to it than that. And as we dive deeper, should I just dive, or do you have a question for me at this point?
No, go for it. Yeah.
All right. So in terms of, does the school support your goals? Again, we said that goal has to be industry and function. Let's say you want to go into consulting and you want to go into management consulting. Then you're going to look at the employment report for specific schools. Actually, what I would say, just in terms of starting, if you have no idea where you want to apply, then I would look at some of the specialty rankings. Not the overall ranking, but the specialty ranking for your specific area of expertise. Let's say you want to go into management consulting. Look at the U.S. News. What are the schools best ranked for consulting? Business Week, Financial Times. Check them out. I think they all have specialty rankings. Look at them. If the same schools show up on multiple rankings for consulting, that's your program. If you're interested in tech, then which schools show up for information systems or tech? Which schools, if it's investment banking, which schools show up for finance and investment banking, financial services? So check that out. You may already have some idea. You can also do coffee chats, talk to people who maybe already who are in positions that you would be interested in having post MBA. What school did they go to? What school do they wish they would have gone to? And you'll soon narrow down your options to, I don't know, 5, 10 schools that interest you. And then look at them in terms of, again, I mentioned the employment report. The question is, how are they going to support you in pursuing your goals? The employment report is one way to start that. Are they sending grads in significant numbers to the companies you want to work for and the functions you want to be in? What about the curriculum? Is it going to teach you what you want to learn in order to pursue your goal? And how is it taught? Some schools emphasize the case method, Harvard and Darden most notably. Does that appeal to you? Some are more mixed, case, lecture, etc. Some are very, very experiential. What do you want? Where do you perform the best? How are you going to learn the best? Look into that. The next one is extracurriculars, clubs, competition, treks. Are these things that are, again, going to support your goals? Externships, these kinds of things. And then, of course, there are personal preferences. Maybe you have a significant other who has a job in a particular location or wants to be in a particular location. Is climate a factor? Some people can't stand snow. Some people love snow. Some people can't stand heat and humidity. And that it's all a factor. Do you want a big city or a rural experience? There's a lot of, Columbia and Dartmouth Tuck are both great programs, but the experience is going to be very, very different. Columbia is in Manhattan, so is NYU. Tuck is in Hanover, New Hampshire. It's gorgeous, but it's going to be a different experience. What is your preference? And those thoughts, that analysis, will really guide you in selecting your programs, and it's a heck of a lot better than throwing darts at U.S. News World Report's ranking, which I sometimes think applicants do. For the more competitive schools, okay, so, and then there's a bit about qualifications. That the supporting your goals is what you want to get out of the program. But the schools are going to be looking not only at your fit in terms of your goals, and they will look at that, they want to see what you're bringing to the program. And that has to do with your qualifications. And again, that's where I would recommend the MBA Missions Quiz that I just mentioned. But that's going to consist of your academics, primarily your grades and test score, but not exclusively. You can show academic ability through certifications, CPA, actuarial exams, CFA. All those are demanding exams that show your quantitative ability. You can also show it through demanding work experience. Quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis, that's all something that the schools were looking at. And then again, your work experience. I mentioned, work experience in terms of showing academic ability, but MBA programs in particular are interested in leadership, seeing management qualities, management traits, organizational skills, teamwork skills are critically important in business school. So through your work experience, can you show those qualities? Do you have a record of achievement and growth and advancement on the job? Have you been handling increasing levels of responsibility? Perhaps having direct reports? How many direct reports? All that will show the schools that you have the experience they're looking for to contribute in class discussions and on teamwork projects. There's also personal qualities. Schools want to see people, and I think Harvard is particularly focused on this. They want to develop leaders. They don't want to create leaders. In other words, you already have to have leadership skills and ability in order to get into Harvard Business School. And most schools are looking for evidence of leadership and teamwork skills when you apply. So it's academics, it's experience, it's these personal qualities. And for the more competitive programs in particular, they're also looking at something in your experience, in your background, in your perspective that says you're going to add a special something to the class. So that's the qualifications and the experience. At the end of the day, you need to combine the two, and there should be overlap between the schools you are most interested in because they support your goals and the ones most likely to be interested in you. And where there's that overlap, that's where you should apply.
Yeah. So there's a few things I want to unpack from what you just said. The first is you were talking about like going through specialty lists, right? And with specialty lists, I think it's great advice. And I also think that the key thing that I think about when I think about specialty lists is kind of like finding really good schools that are not in the M7. right? And the M7, just for those who aren't familiar with the term, is basically just like the top 7 business schools that everybody
Magic
wants to go
seven.
to,
Right.
right? Like, yeah, obviously, if you want to go to consulting, uh, and you go to Harvard Business School, you'll probably be in a pretty good spot to go to consulting, right? You'll also be in a good spot to go to most anything. Um, but what if there's some schools that are actually like feeders to a top consulting company in your region that are more of like a local school, right? Like I think that there's a lot of opportunity to kind of find I hesitate to use the word diamonds in the rough. More like find arbitrage opportunity in like how good that program is in the field versus how high it is ranked on the U.S. News World Report list for overall.
Mm-hmm.
And like my alma mater is a good example of this. Actually, I went to Carnegie Mellon. I went for business, not computer science, but our computer science program is routinely ranked like number 1 or number 2 for
Sure.
undergrad, but the school is kind of like top 30 overall,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're really into computer science, Carnegie Mellon's a great option, and you don't need a Stanford resume to get in like you would, right? So it's a very interesting, like I think that that's kind of the first thing I wanted to unpack. Do you have any follow up thoughts on what I just said, or yeah?
Look,
If not, I can
I'm
move
a
on to my
firm
next
believer in the
comment.
art of the. No. I think you're raising a good point. I'm a firm believer in the art of the possible. So I actually had a call with somebody yesterday,
Hmm.
where he was aiming for Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, MIT, and Haas, and I
Hmm.
felt that he had
It's quite a
a
list,
chance
yeah.
at these programs. Yeah, it was quite a list. He's an impressive guy, very nice fellow. Um, Impressive list. And I've had many calls like this. And I said, look, I think it's appropriate for you to apply to these programs, but I also think you should apply to some programs that still support your goals and are going to be more likely to accept you. Just
Hmm.
because there was a slight. He was overall a strong candidate, but there was one slight weakness. So and you could have all your ducks lined up for these schools and not get in. So
Yeah.
so that was the point. So then you go to, well, okay, great. What is the diamond in the rough, to use your phrase, or what is the school that still supports my goals, is not in the M7, but will take me where I want to go? Will be that means to an end, that bridge to from that will take me from where I am today to where I want to be in 2 or 3 years. Um,
Hmm.
and if you get into Harvard, great, but maybe Ross would be a great program for you, or maybe Yale SOM, which
Hmm.
does, again, to stick with my consulting uh, example, they place excellently in all the top consulting firms. And what about Foster, University of Washington Foster for tech? I mean, it's
Hmm.
does fantastic placement in that field. So, I think it again. That's where you come up with matching the qualification. You can't just say, beer tastes. What is it? Champagne tastes, beer pockets. You can say that also about champagne tastes and academics and beer grades. Uh, you know,
Right.
you gotta match it. Beer qualifications. So, and the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
thing I would say is, even if you are a highly qualified candidate, or if you're a less qualified candidate but have some fantastic experiences, apply to a range of schools.
Hmm. Well, that also gives you, not only does it give you a little bit more assurance that you'll get into something in this cycle, but also, like you were talking about later, like when you go through the interview, well, not the interview process with the school, but if you go through the prep process of interviewing alumni, which you should do, you might find that a school that you maybe weren't considering might actually be the best fit for you.
Absolutely. I can think of one example off the top of my head where a client wasn't considering a particular program, and the consultant said, "Have you thought of this particular school?" And no. I really think you should look into it. Really? I don't know. I'm not interested. And it's not in the M7. And no, I really think you should look into it. So the client looked into it, ended up not getting into the M7, attended the school that the consultant suggested, and was extraordinarily happy there. Not that he was happy, but he did end up pursuing the goals he wanted to pursue. So, hedge your bets a little bit.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think also, I mean, so another thing I want to touch on too, which you mentioned earlier, was this idea of like looking into the clubs and activities on campus. And I think for a lot of people, especially for MBA programs, they might be like, like I'm just there for the degree, right? Or because for a lot of people, myself included, admittedly, extracurriculars were a thing that you did because you felt like you needed to for like future applications
Yeah.
to things, not because you really genuinely like want to change the world about something, which is, it's a flaw of mine. But I think that nowadays, like knowing what I know now, I would have loved to in college learn more about the education industry and like gotten to connect with people in that industry and things like that. Or, I mean, another example, and this actually has a lot to do with like culture fit and like how included you'll feel there. I was talking to somebody named Dr. Justin Grimes about being an underrepresented minority in graduate school. And he was like, yeah, I mean, you should see if they have groups for you, people that, look like you, talk like you kind of thing, so that you can get some solidarity and also, you have a built-in kind of social network from day one there of people that are like you, which can be really helpful when dealing with, being in a minority in these institutions. And it's just like things like that, right? Like where it's like, can you see yourself there? Can you see yourself living the life that a student there lives? And also like really kind of taking advantage of the resources that you'll have access to.
Absolutely. And again, in terms of my focus on the post MBA goal, a lot of the extracurriculars, I would say that the affinity groups are fun. And they can provide, emotional support, just comradeship, right? That you have a common background, a common
Mm-hmm.
identity. And so that is important in terms of just personal preferences. In terms of pursuing your goal, though, having clubs that support your goal, whether it's a tech club or the consulting club or the investment banking club or whatever it is, or luxury goods, some schools have marketing,
Mm-hmm.
that can really help you with connections in terms of meeting people, interviews, placements, internships, externships, participating in competitions, treks, etc. So they, on one hand, they can be enormous fun, and I'm not opposed to that, but they can also really enhance your chances of achieving that goal, your educational goals, your
Mm-hmm.
professional goals.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. So, other than what we've talked about so far, which we've covered a lot of really good stuff, but I'm curious kind of what other things you like to, surface to your clients or just talk about when it comes to building your school list, right? Do you want to talk about kind of the structure of the list maybe? Like you've got some targets and some kind of reasonable chances and then some safeties or things like that, or where do you want
Well,
to touch on
there's a lot
next?
of different ways to go about it. Okay, sometimes
Yeah,
clients are
yeah,
really limited
definitely.
geographically. They know they want to be in New York City, maybe for example, or they want to be in the Midwest, or they want to be on the West Coast, whatever it might be, or they want to be in Europe. So that obviously automatically limits you, and it might very much influence the number of programs that you apply to. But let's say you're an applicant and you say, I want to go, either the world is my oyster, or I want to go to a US business school. Well, that's even if you take
Mm,
the latter approach, I want to go to a US business school, um, and you look into the programs, and there may be 15 programs that you're considering. Well, I would suggest then that you narrow it down. And I think there's two different logical ways to approach it. um, I'm not sure which is best. It probably depends a little bit on the individual circumstances of the client. One way is to say I'm going to apply to 4 schools round 1 and 4 schools round 2. I'll apply round 1 to those schools I'm most interested in or to those schools that are the most difficult to get into. If I'm not accepted, then I'll apply round 2 to the other ones. So it's kind of like A list and B list. The other one is to say, I want to divide it up a little bit more evenly, where I'm going to apply to some of the more competitive schools round 1, but I'm also going to apply to some of the more difficult schools round 1. But I also want to make sure I'm accepted and I have something in my hip pocket. So I'm going to apply to one that I'm more confident about, also round 1, so I don't kind of blow my chances. Um, and then round 2, I'll apply to the other 4 schools. I don't recommend, I recommend generally, especially if you're aiming for top programs, 6 to 8 schools. If you're being more conservative in your applications, then probably 4 schools is adequate. In terms of timing, I've been talking about round 1 and round 2. Almost all MBA programs at this point have you apply on the basis of rounds, and they might look at an app or 2 before the deadline, but most of them don't even start reviewing applications until the deadline passes. And these are posted on their website. Most of the round 1 deadlines are in September. The round 2 deadlines are usually in January. Notifications for round 1 is usually in December, but not always. The notification for round 2 is usually March, April, and most schools have around 3 also. That's later in the spring. But if you're listening to this now or in the near future, I strongly advise you to apply round 1 and round 2. Acceptance rates go down in round 3.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been told that round 3 is like, it's like you're almost in the same category as all the waitlisted people from round 1 and 2. Like it's like a very small percentage of the total pool that gets admitted. Is that accurate?
Well, it depends a little bit on the cycle, right? If there's a high application volume, round 1 and round 2, then round 3 is really, really difficult. If it's a low application volume, then round 3, then they're looking for people round 3. So that's also a factor. I generally have advised people to, unless they have some enormous diversity elements in their profile, that are really unusual in the applicant pool and highly qualified in the applicant pool, if you're not to apply round 3 and to wait to round 1 of next year. But if you are highly qualified and will be adding diversity points in all its meaning to a program, then yeah, try it round 3. No harm. Think of the image of a movie theater with all the empty seats open when tickets just start being sold, and then by round 3, you can assume that 80% of the seats are gone. It's a lot harder to snag that seat. Musical chairs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
So yeah, we're talking about basically you want to kind of make sure you're applying in round 1 or round 2. You want to make sure you kind of have at least some schools that are not completely aspirational in your applications to round 1 or round 2. What other advice do you have for people? Yeah.
Well, there's being competitive, which we've focused on very much. There's also presenting your qualifications effectively. Right. So that we haven't touched on at all, but that is the second part of applying well. Make sure you answer the questions posed, not the ones on the last application you just completed. When you're completing applications, focus on each individual school. Go school by school. Don't do all the leadership questions at once and all the failure questions at once and diversity questions and then adapt. Go school by school because you want to make sure that you're making use of all the different elements of the application real estate to present the most complete and textured, multidimensional image of you. Obviously, you're going to focus on your strengths, but so that's that part. I realize that might be another podcast, episode, but that's that's just another piece of advice in terms of choosing schools. you know, again, I recommend applying to a range. I'd also recommend if you look at your qualifications and you say, I really want to go to, I don't know, school X. Let's just call it school X. But I'm a little short on work experience. My grades are a little low. My test score is also a little low. But that's a school I really want to go to for whatever reason. Well, you either have to, and you're really not sure of your chances of acceptance. Yes, you can throw an application in. You can spend the $250 or whatever the application fee is. You can throw an application fee. You can throw an application in. But what about trying to improve your qualification? Maybe wait to apply the following year. Maybe take some courses, quantitative courses that show you can handle the curriculum, or take something like HBS Core or MBA Math or something like that, or take some statistics for business class online through extension. A graded class that shows, hey, now I can handle this stuff. Or maybe as an undergrad, I didn't handle it so well. Or retake the GMAT or the GRE. But if you did self prep last time, maybe take a course now. Or if you did a course last time, try a tutor now. Do things that will enhance your chances of application so that your dream school isn't out of reach.
Right.
Don't just I'll throw an application. Yeah, you can do that, but try and if necessary, wait, especially if you're on the younger end.
Yeah, well, and also not only wait if you're on the younger end, but I think wait if you, let's say you really want to apply to HBS and maybe your transcript's not quite there. Your GMAT's kind of coming in the high 600s. It really needs to be in the low to mid 700s, right? Like waiting, and then also you just got into a leadership position at your job 6 months ago. Well, if Harvard's looking for leadership, then, you know, having an extra year to develop that would be great. Having an extra year to work on your GMAT score, GRE score would also be helpful. And you can use that time to join more things, join a young business professionals organization in your field and try to find your way into a leadership role or some kind of contributing role in that or things like that, right? Like if you're really fixed on one school, start interviewing alumni now and listen to what they say the school wants and then go do that, right? Like you have time to do a couple cycles, I think, of this.
Right. And don't just try it. Actually work to improve your qualifications so that you will be competitive at your school. And then you can work on being a compelling applicant when you actually apply. But first get the qualifications down.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have anything else on this topic that you want to cover today?
I think I've tried to be pretty comprehensive. Again,
Yeah.
it boils down to support of your goal, what you're going to get out of the program in terms of supporting
Hmm.
your goals, and that being that means to an end, and then what you're going to bring to the school and give to the school.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. This has been GRE Snacks, hosted by Tyler from Achievable with Linda Abraham from Accepted. And Linda, do you mind just sharing the link of your MBA quiz one more time?
Be delighted. Accepted.com/MBA quiz.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day.